In this edition of 2020 Daily Trail Markers, the Democratic presidential candidates converged on South Carolina this weekend to lay out their plans for criminal justice reform. The Second Step Presidential Justice Forum was held at the historically Black Benedict College in Columbia. The three-day event began Friday with a keynote speech from President Trump. He was presented the Bipartisan Justice Award for his role in signing the First Step Act last year. The bipartisan legislation enacted several changes, including reduced mandatory minimum sentences and expanded drug treatment programs for prisoners. When it was time for Democratic candidates to take the podium on Saturday, some seized on the chance to attack the president's record.
Donald Trump was given an award. He was given a platform. The Bipartisan Justice Center allowed him to create an illusion that he had support from HBCUs or this community, when in fact, he does not have the support of communities like this that he actively demeans, degrades, and disempowers.
I'm looking forward to a discussion about how we can do better than a president who calls for death for the Central Park Five.
He dares to compare himself to the people who have been at the wrong end of a system that is in need of reform.
The word justice and Donald Trump do not go into the same sentence.
2020 campaign reporter LaCrai Mitchell was at that forum. She joins me now from Benedict College in Columbia, South Carolina. LaCrai, thanks so much for being with us. This forum was intended to be a bipartisan conversation about the future of the First Step Act. But some decisions made by the organizers of that event sparked a big controversy. Tell us what happened.
I think the best place to start is on Friday, President Trump came here, and the 2020 Bipartisan Justice Center, it's a group that dubs itself as a bipartisan group of Democrats and Republicans. They invited him to co-host this event with Benedict College on campus. And as early as Friday morning, we found out that of the 300 or so tickets that had been given out, only 10 of those tickets had gone to Benedict students. And later reports showed that maybe only 7 students were actually inside of the event. And so between that and the fact that he was given this bipartisan award for signing the First Step Act, it just started a bit of controversy here, because you had people who felt like it was not right for him to be on the campus of an HBCU that has fought historically very hard for criminal justice for the Black community. And so it was a bit of a tassel. You know, you had protesters outside and a totally different thing going on inside that didn't seem to include Benedict students at all.
And LaCrai, California Senator Kamala Harris originally said she was not going to attend the event as a form of protest. What changed her mind?
So all of the controversy of that day then spilled over, and what you had is Friday night, Senator Kamala Harris decided that she was not going to be a part of it. She said that because she was a graduate of an HBCU, she understood better than most that students should not have been excluded from that process. And so she decided that she was going to host some events separately. However, Saturday, as the day got started, Columbia Mayor Steve Benjamin sent out a text message to some reporters and saying that the event had been completely rebranded. The 2020 Bipartisan Justice Center had been taken off as a host, and now it was just going to be a Benedict College event. However, in terms of programming, you wouldn't necessarily have been able to tell that. I mean, the executive director of the group still gave opening remarks. In terms of in the gaggle room, there was a moment where they tried to bring up a banner that still had the Bipartisan Justice Center logo. And so it felt to some like it was just a move so that you could get different candidates to come on campus, i.e. Senator Harris, because she said she wasn't going to be a part of it. So they rebranded it as a Benedict College event, but it was still held in the same venue in the Fine Arts building here. You still had some of the same programming, and the Bipartisan Justice Center still got shout-outs throughout the day yesterday in terms of opening remarks, not necessarily from candidates, because as you heard in the compilation that we put together earlier, Senator Cory Booker, Senator Kamala Harris, they were very impassioned in their remarks about saying that they were not for President Donald Trump having been here.
Interesting. I do want to ask about Pete Buttigieg, LaCrai. He has struggled to gain traction with black voters. He's also faced scrutiny over his handling of the deadly shooting of a black man by a white police officer in South Bend, Indiana, where he is mayor. How did Pete Buttigieg try to make headway in South Carolina on Saturday?
Absolutely. I think you saw what we've been seeing in some of his visits here. You know, whenever asked that question, he says that he's trying to make an effort within the black community. He's been doing things like meeting with local black pastors, which is something that all of the candidates do here in South Carolina. And yesterday he brought that up. You know, he didn't shy away, and he said that there were things that he's learned. I think the biggest thing is that what you're seeing in terms of here in South Carolina is his team is starting to grow. You know, they were one of the last ones to hire a South Carolina state director, but now they've got a staff that's up to, his team says 34 organizers here, or 34 staffers. And so they're trying to build out, and they know that they have to make some pointed efforts to reach out to the black community here. And so you see them doing that by meeting with local pastors and hosting these events. You know, his team says that their biggest thing is getting people to know him, and he still feels like that of all the candidates, he's not really known here in the state. After the Criminal Justice Forum yesterday, he had a town hall in Rock Hill where his team says there was a reported 1,200 people in the crowd. And so we weren't able to confirm that number, but I do think that there's something to be said for him trying to have these events. Rock Hill is a little more upstate, so you had some people that came from North Carolina, but he's trying to just get his name out there. And I think yesterday was an opportunity for him to do that, with him having just released a criminal justice plan as well. So he was able to talk about how he wants to reduce the numbers for incarceration and sort of dive into his plan a little bit more for the audience.
LaCrai, you talked a moment ago about some of the controversy among the organizers of this event. What did the students you spoke with say about President Trump attending a forum at an HBCU?
I'm really glad you asked that, Elaine, because I was making sure that in our reporting, and I think we did a good job of this, is that we kept the students in focus, right? This event should have been about them. They definitely should be an integral part in this. And so the students that I talked to, there were mixed reviews. You had some that felt like it was a good thing that the president was on campus, because with that attention comes this spotlight that allowed them an opportunity to speak to media and to give their opinions and to talk about these sort of things. But on the other hand, just like with anything, you've got people who weren't in favor of him being here. You know, I talked to a freshman who got really emotional while she was talking to me, and I think it had to do with the atmosphere, the protesters, but you know, she said to me that it felt really bad to have protesters on campus saying that liberals were going to be taken out this time around, because she said it felt a bit invasive that they were coming to her campus and saying those things to her face. And so I think there was this, you know, this sense of, he's here, let's see what moment we can make of it, or how we can make the best and maximize this moment of this attention. But there were definitely some students who felt like it was a bit of disrespectful was the word that I heard used. Disrespectful that he came to campus knowing some of the things that he said in the past, some of his charged rhetoric, that sort of deal, racially charged rhetoric at times, and students didn't forget about that.
LaCrai, during the forum itself, a few of the Democratic frontrunners gave very different answers to a question about interacting with police. Let's listen to some of that.
If I were your daughter, what advice would you give me the next time I am stopped by the police?
If you were my daughter, you'd be a Caucasian girl and you wouldn't be pulled over. No. But here's the deal. What I tell you is, that's what's wrong.
In a polite way, ask him or her for their name. I would respect what they are doing so that you don't get shot in the back of the head.
Can I start by saying you remind me again about white privilege? I think the way the talk starts is by saying, this is not your fault. This is a fault of discrimination.
So, LaCrai, how did the crowd react to those various responses?
Absolutely. Well, so when Senator Sanders gave a response, there definitely, you could feel in the room that people were waiting to see what he was going to say. Almost, it felt a bit like hanging on to the words because he seemed to struggle a little bit with the answer. You know, he had a bit of a pause and, you know, went through. Now, what I did hear, interestingly enough, by some people who were attending the event next to me, is when he did give that answer about, you know, wanting to get information about who they are, I heard an older African-American woman next to me say, no, you're not supposed to question the police. And so I think there was a little bit of, wait, where is he going with this? Whereas I felt when former Vice President Biden gave the answer, as you could hear, the crowd erupted in applause, and I could hear some laughs too, and it just sort of rolled off his tongue, that answer. With Senator Warren today, again, it wasn't necessarily that thunderous applause that you heard with former Vice President Biden. I think the thing to take away is that, look, this is a question that I would not be surprised if in some form it continues to resurface again.
Absolutely. It was a really illuminating question to see how it is that those various candidates decided to navigate that question. LaCrai Mitchell for us. Thank you so much, LaCrai. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.